It's only been a week and a half, and Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff nominee, has already lost control of the White House and Donald Trump and the selection of cabinet members. I'm Michael Popok. You're on the new Legal AF YouTube channel. Now more than ever, we need your help on this pro-democracy, independent channel in collaboration with the Midas Touch Network. Hit the button and subscribe. Susie Wiles was supposed to bring discipline to Donald Trump. She is the one, as the White House Chief of Staff nominee, that's supposed to not only be the gatekeeper, but she is supposed to be the one to have the relationships with Capitol Hill, with the Senate, with the Congress, help get Donald Trump's legislative agenda passed and get all of his cabinet nominees through. And let me show you all the ways that Susie Wiles' world is spinning out of control. Let's start with Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is not a Susie Wiles special. It's a Boris Epshteyn special. He is the lawyer for Donald Trump who's been indicted in Arizona. He's lost his bar license recently for failing to keep up with all of his requirements. He pitched Matt Gaetz in the last few days on a plane that Susie Wiles didn't even know about and wasn't on. And that's when Donald Trump decided to pick Matt Gaetz and then dumped it in the lap of Susie Wiles to clean up behind the elephant. Does that say she's bringing discipline to the organization? Does that say she has outsized influence? Or does that say she's going to go the way of all the other chiefs of staff who all lasted, in average, less than a year? So Susie Wiles gets told that Matt Gaetz is the pick, and then she has to learn about the sex trafficking report that the Ethics Committee in the House is about to drop after, it looks like, the Republican chairman of the Ethics Committee tipped off Matt Gaetz that he's not going to like what's in the report, accusing him of crimes, drug use, taking bribes, and raping girls. He then decided to resign. At around the same time, Boris Epshteyn, without Susie Wiles' involvement, pitches it on an airplane, and Donald Trump decides at that moment of impetuousness to nominate Matt Gaetz, who will never get through. Now let's pick up the story with Susie Wiles. One of the things she's supposed to do is to try to keep the Congress and the Senate under control and ready and prepared to confirm the nominations of Donald Trump. And already we have people in the Republican Party who have jumped off sides and said there's no way they're going to support Matt Gaetz. There's no way they're going to support RFK Jr. John Cornyn, who was not Donald Trump's choice for Senate Majority Leader, has already said at a press conference he's not going to support Matt Gaetz, especially unless and until the American people see the sex report. Susan Collins did the same thing of Maine, and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, the same thing. This is all on Susie Wiles, who's never really worked on Capitol Hill. So just in the period of 72 hours, Susie Wiles has lost complete control of the White House. She gets shoved onto her, Matt Gaetz, not literally, but it might as well be. She has to clean up behind it. She can't control Cornyn in the Senate, and a day earlier, her number one pick to be the Senate Majority Leader, her old boss, Rick Scott, which Donald Trump apparently I sort of wanted. Musk is jumping up and down celebrating that it'll be Rick Scott. Rick Scott goes down in flames. He does not get picked by the Senate. So that's, if you're scoring at home, so far it's chaos 2, Susie Wiles 0. Let's continue, because it gets even better or worse. The next thing that Susie Wiles has to deal with is the pick for the Department of Defense Cabinet Secretary, Pete Hegseth. Apparently, she didn't do her vetting properly and didn't know until the last 24 hours that Pete Hegseth, who used to be on Fox News for 14 years, has a sex assault charge against him in California since 2017. He's currently being represented by, get this, he's currently being represented by Tim Parlatore. You may remember that Tim Parlatore used to represent Donald Trump in the Mar-a-Lago case and in a couple of other cases, and then he fired the client and left. Well, now Tim, who's sort of a MAGA right-wing lawyer, is representing Pete Hegseth. And now Susie Wiles had to pull together at the last minute, in the last 24 hours, a group of lawyers and Tim Parlatore to talk about this. Again, Susie Wiles cleaning up behind the elephants. She's not ahead. She's not leaning forward. She's already leaning back, and I'm only talking about the last 72 hours. So she loses the Senate. She loses the pick for the Senate Majority Leader in Rick Scott. It goes instead to John Thune of South Dakota, who's always been sort of a marginally not a pro-Trumper. That's not good for Susie Wiles. Then she doesn't know about Hegseth's criminal background until after he's announced. She doesn't know it's going to be Matt Gaetz until after it's announced, and then has to scramble around to try to pull together people in Congress that she doesn't seem to know very well to try to do damage control about Matt Gaetz, who's never going to get through the gauntlet of the U.S. Senate to get confirmed, and then start all over again with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, who have been nominated to be Department of Health and Human Services and National Intelligence Director. And it's all coming back to Susie. So here's the problem. She's not her own chief of staff. Donald Trump is his own chief of staff. She seems to have no skills to work her way through Congress, which is one of the number one things of the job description of the chief of staff for the White House is to get the president's legislative agenda passed through relationships with the House and the Senate, hopefully help pick the House and Senate leaders, all right? Also get the cabinet members confirmed. How's she doing? First of all, Donald Trump is making decisions without her, literally without her. This plane ride in which Matt Gaetz was picked is apparently the same plane ride in which Boris Epshteyn pitched himself to be the envoy, the special envoy, to try to solve the Ukraine-Russia war. This is a guy who is indicted in Arizona for his role in the fake elector scheme. He's the unindicted co-conspirator in a superseding indictment brought by Jack Smith. He has zero experience as a diplomat. He barely has practiced any time as a lawyer. His law license was suspended until the New York Times pointed out that he needs to get his license unsuspended. But he's got the ear of Donald Trump, and he boxed out Susie Wiles, who wasn't even on the plane. So picture Susie Wiles. Plane lands, right, to Palm Beach, apparently. And out comes, here's Susie, Matt Gaetz, Attorney General. Boris Epshteyn is going to be Ukraine-Russia envoy. And, by the way, I don't know if you know, Hegseth has a sex assault charge in 2017 in California. You deal with it. And then she's got to report to her boss that she's lost control of the Senate. He's like, did Rick Scott, your boss, win? No. Who won? John Thune. Not good. John Thune, who's already said, we're going to have to take a close look at Matt Gaetz. So if this is the first 3 days on the job, so to speak, for Susie Wiles, how's she doing? It's chaos 6, Susie Wiles 0. What's the over-under on her lasting and even getting to be the White House chief of staff on the way in? You know, there's 60 days or so left. I'm not sure she makes it. People are joking about her like she might be like Scaramucci, who was the communications director for like less than a week in the first Trump administration. She might be like Anthony Scaramucci. I don't know. I mean, if I'm Donald Trump, who hates losers, that's all Susie's been doing. She's boxed out on major decisions. She's not told about cabinet picks. She doesn't do her due diligence on them to know that they have sex crime problems. She loses her pick for Senate Majority Leader. She can't control the House, obviously. So what does that say about trying to get Donald Trump's legislative agenda passed? Not good. So here's what I'm trying to say. Don't get too attached to Susie Wiles. I'm not sure she's going to make it. I really don't. It'll just be another revolving door of White House chief of staffs, the way Donald Trump had 4 of them in 4 years when he was the president the last time. You know, he had Reince Priebus out of Minnesota, who was there for a very short amount of time. He had Mark Meadows, he had another guy, and then he had one general, John Kelly, who lasted the longest, 2 years. By the time he left, he said that Donald Trump was a fascist and he shouldn't get it, and that he insulted the troops, and that he insulted injured troops and the memory of combat veterans, and he insulted John McCain, pissing off all the veterans, and he shouldn't get anywhere near the White House. So how'd that go? I told Susie Wiles, you better be careful. We just had a case recently at the United States Supreme Court where Mark Meadows, the last White House chief of staff, just got some bad news at the Supreme Court, because when you leave office, you don't get to take all your cases like prosecutions to federal court. You're stuck in state court like he is. Susie Wiles better hope she doesn't commit any crimes while she's in office, because when she leaves office, she will have crosshairs on her back, especially if the Democrats retake the White House. And that is likely. I mean, if you look at the stats, when the party that wins the trifecta and gets both houses of Congress, both chambers of Congress and the White House, how does that work out? Not well. Not well. Almost all of them lose badly at the midterms. And then we got to just kind of make Donald Trump a loser. And stories like this one, where he doesn't even have enough respect for Susie Wiles to run some of these picks by her first, let her do her job. And then she's got her own self-inflicted wounds. She probably pushed Rick Scott. Oh, he's my boss. He's great. He'll do anything you say. And then, but the Senate is a creature of institutional habits and legacy. And they're not going to sacrifice it all for Donald Trump's short-termer, less than 4 years before he's lame duck presidency. They're just not. Susie Wiles, not the right person for the job. It's great for democracy, though. She won't get anything through. She won't get anything passed. She'll be completely ineffective, and he'll end up being his own White House chief of staff. Continue to follow it all. You're here already. Hit the subscribe button. Help us help you. The bigger we get, the more your voice is heard on this independent channel. So until my next Legal AF contribution, I'm Michael Popok, and I am reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.